What's up? How you doing? Here we are Tuesday night. A bit breezy out, but mild. Have a battery charger here that has saved me more than once. JNC Air. So flip it around a little bit here. So it's a battery charger. It's also a air for your tires. An air pump. And the good thing about this is that it has a lot of power. You put it on your battery, the negative and positive cables, and instantly you can start your car. You don't have to wait half hour, 20 minutes, 10 minutes, 5 minutes. Instant starts the car right up. I used to have one made by Duracell, and I bought it. I said, well, you know, they make great batteries, so their charger must be awesome. And then I used it and I realized it's not that awesome. And the problem with the Duracell one was that, first of all, you had to charge it quite often. It would not hold the charge. So every couple of weeks or so, if you needed it, say it was in your car and 2 weeks went by since the last time you fully charged it, it wouldn't have that much power in it. With this one here, it could be a year later, it could be 14, 15, whatever months. I don't know how long it goes, but so far I've charged it and left it on the side for quite a while, and then I'll look at it, I'll hit the button, and it's still fully charged. So I highly recommend this brand. I highly recommend to have one of these in your car, especially if you're going out into places like the desert. So I just used it a few minutes ago. My vehicle had died, and I brought it back to life instamatically. So put that down there, and then I want to talk about my adding device. So when I do the water bill every month, just to double check it, I use one of these things here. Abacus. Get that. You don't need a calculator. If you have one of these, that's all you need. Been using this for quite a few years now. Very accurate. Comes with a book, instructions, bead arithmetic. Shows you how to do everything in here, even algebra. So I highly recommend every home should have one of these. Does not need battery. Wow, very breezy out here. Tuesday night. When I was a bit younger, Tuesday night was Tuesday night fights. I would sit with my father in the kitchen and we turn on Tuesday night fights every Tuesday night. I don't care what was going on. We sat at the table and we watched Tuesday night fights together every Tuesday, as long as the show was on. Sean O'Grady, very intelligent fighter and good commentator. Knew a lot about the sport of boxing. But I used to watch Muhammad Ali fights. My father was a huge Muhammad Ali fan. I'm a big fan too of Muhammad Ali. But my father was a crazy Muhammad Ali fan. I feel like something's gonna fall. But every time there was a fight with Muhammad Ali, I would stay up in the kitchen and we'd watch it together. But not just Muhammad Ali. George Foreman fights, Joe Frazier fights, Ken Norton. Big fan of Ken Norton. The weird thing about Ken Norton, Muhammad Ali had a very hard time beating Ken Norton. I guess styles make fights. But George Foreman had no problem beating Ken Norton, but George Foreman had a problem beating Muhammad Ali. And Muhammad Ali realized what a tough fighter George Foreman was, so he only granted him one fight, no rematch. They didn't fight again, and there should have been a rematch. You know, that fight was very close, knockout late in the fight. George Foreman deserved a rematch, but for some reason it never happened. And I want to say about Muhammad Ali, if you see fights from the 60s that he fought, not just Sonny Liston, but other fighters, it's amazing for a heavyweight, and for a middleweight even, the hand speed. You don't hear much about it these days because, you know, many years after the fact, but Muhammad Ali was a fast fighter, very fast. He wasn't a knockout artist. It wasn't like Rocky Marciano, where Rocky Marciano was like a bulldozer. He would plow through you, he would swarm you. He was a swarmer. You couldn't get him off of you once he started, but he was very strong and he could knock you out. I mean, Marciano was losing many of those fights that he won until he knocked the guy out. But he was an amazing fighter in terms of knockout ability. And with Rocky Marciano, you have to be impressed with his conditioning. Very few fighters in the history of boxing had that much dedication to conditioning. So, you know, the other guy that really, you know, stood out in my mind for conditioning, Marvin Hagler, which happens to be my favorite fighter. Love Marvin Hagler, but he also trained hard like Rocky Marciano, both of them from Brockton. But you know, that's the thing. He had short arms, Rocky Marciano. They're like 67 inch, where a lot of the other guys were like 74, 75, 81, you know, inch reach, and he had 67. I think it was around 67. Short arms, but if you know how to use your upper body and your midsection, short arms do not prevent you from knocking somebody out. As a matter of fact, you have good leverage when you're at a certain height. If you're too tall and your arms are too long, it's hard to hit somebody with the right shots. But yeah, I'm hoping boxing makes a comeback again, because it's been down for a few years now. So yeah, I mean, Mike Tyson, another amazing fighter, superpower. He's another guy that I'd watch a lot. He was on USA Network fighting quite often. I'd get home in the evening and then I'd see Mike Tyson was fighting. This was before he became champ. And my father was like, yeah, but he's not like Ali. Ali fought clean, you know. I go, yeah, but that's the thing. This guy swarms you. There's no rule against that, you know. I mean, if you can get a guy out and around, better for your brain. But yeah, missed those fights. But Rocky Marciano, Joe Frazier, Mike Tyson, similar style. You know, not too tall. They had that, you know, style of fighting where it was like a swarming style. And Marciano and Mike Tyson, they had very strong, you know, right hooks that could knock you out instantly. I mean, Mike Tyson was more like a combination guy. He would hit you with a lot of combinations and you'd go down. Well, Rocky Marciano could hit you with one shot and you'd go down. Another guy that, Jack Dempsey, amazing fighter. Fought Firpo, was it 1923? That fight was so impressive that they even mentioned it in Rocky, the original Rocky, where Mickey tells him that tells Rocky that he fought, Rocky Balboa, that he fought on the undercard during the Dempsey-Firpo fight. And he asks him, who do you think got the attention that night? He says, Dempsey. And he says, why? And Rocky says, because he was champion of the world. Or he says he was champ. And Mickey says, no, because he had a manager. Mickey didn't have a manager. But yeah, Jack Dempsey, another amazing fighter. You know, who else? I like Larry Holmes. Larry Holmes had a great jab. Pretty much fought everybody. defended the title like 20 times. Incredible stamina for that amount of time, like 7 years was champ. And then a guy came through, and his name was Michael Spinks. And on the night that Larry Holmes was going to tie the record of Rocky Marciano, he loses to Michael Spinks, which I was shocked. I actually was watching that fight. I was shocked. But there's another example of a guy who came in top shape, Michael Spinks. They changed the training around. He did that intensive, high output training, and he ended up beating Larry Holmes, which that night I was shocked. I literally was shocked. But I thought he was gonna, tie the record. And then he came back for the rematch, and clearly, I mean, I agree with the first fight that Larry Holmes lost, but the second fight, Larry Holmes mopped the floors with him, and then some, and they still gave the decision to Michael Spinks. That was robbery. But I've seen a lot of decisions like that. The biggest one that I saw was watching Roy Jones in the Olympics fight the Korean guy. I don't know the Korean guy's name. And he beat him, as they say in the movies, I saw you beat him like I've never seen no man get beat before. He beat him like that. Roy Jones beat him like in the old days they would beat a dog with a stick, like beat him. And when it was time for the decision, they gave it to the Korean fighter. Later on, they did an investigation. They found that money was exchanged and bribes and all that to get the Korean guy to win. But Roy Jones beat him like I've never seen anybody get beat in the Olympics ever before. Roy Jones, great fighter, one of the top. There's a few fighters that I admire. Tommy Hearns is another one. Great power. For a guy that was spindly like that with the long spider arms, he had a lot of power. But he's another example also of a guy that stayed way too long in the game. You gotta get out of there fast. You can't stay in there and get your brains beat up. Ray Boom Boom Mancini, great action, a lot of heart during his career. Then he ended up killing, what's his name, Koo Kim, or the Korean fighter. And I saw that fight, and I walked in and I saw the guy on the canvas like that. I go, that's not good. He's not going to make that. And then he died. Ray Boom Boom Mancini was never the same after that. He fought Livingston Ramble after that. Ramble. And he was just not the same fighter anymore. Fought him a couple of times, I think, or 3 times, and he lost all 3. I know he fought him at least twice. But early on, he was a great fighter. I'm trying to think who else impressed me back then. Sugar Ray Leonard. Sugar Ray Leonard, great fighter. Ridiculous speed. He had speed that was crazy. I mean, he didn't have power like a Mike Tyson style. Mike Tyson's a heavyweight, but he didn't have that kind of power like a Hagler, even though he beat Hagler. But he had speed. He had crazy speed, and he could knock you out with that speed. I mean, enough punches hit you, you're gonna go down. And then Hagler fought Mugabe, and Mugabe was undefeated at the time, and Hagler went to war with this Mugabe. Is it John Mugabe? He beat him, but it took a toll on him. Both of them were urinating blood after the fight. They had to go to the hospital. It was a brutal fight, and Marvin Hagler was never the same after that. And that's when Sugar Ray Leonard noticed that Hagler's not the same Hagler. And that's when he said, okay, I'm willing to step into the ring and fight you. And Hagler said yes. And then they negotiated a bigger than usual ring. And I think it was 14 by 14 and very big. And it was made that way for Sugar Ray Leonard. Sugar Ray Leonard gave up some money for that. And Hagler said okay. And he had more room to dance around and harder to hit. And even I actually went and saw that fight on closed circuit TV in the Garden that night. and a lot of energy that night in the garden. But I saw early on that Hagler was not the same. A lot slower, had a hard time getting his punches off, and Sugar Ray Leonard was quick, and he beat him. You know, I know Hagler, you know, up until the day he died, did not think that Sugar Ray Leonard beat him, but he beat him. He beat him, but Sugar Ray Leonard should have given him an immediate rematch. But I saw that fight, and yeah, very impressed with the speed of Sugar Ray Leonard. Great conditioning. But you know, it's one of those things where you're doing well in boxing, and then that one fight takes a lot out of you, and then you go back to fight again, and you're not the same guy anymore. And like I said, Sugar Ray Leonard noticed that, and he took the fight. Had he taken that fight 5 years before, Sugar Ray Leonard would have been knocked out in probably 5-6 rounds. No doubt about it. I mean, Hagler fought Hearns and knocked him out in 3. And by the way, that's my favorite fight of all time. Hagler versus Hearns, the war. Crazy fight. 3 rounds of all out slugging. It's crazy. And you know, the thing that really sticks out, Hearns had a jerry curl. I don't know why he had a jerry curl for that fight. That hair kind of throws you off. A lot of weight to that. But Hagler clocked him, and Hearns bounced around a couple of times, and Hagler hit him again, and he went down. Didn't know what month it was after. But amazing fighter, Hearns. Amazing fighter, but Hagler just a little bit better. But he's my favorite fighter. That's it. Time to eat.